and that's what I've typically done, where it's like, if somebody else is doing it, like I said, like, when I care, I'm like, yo, what you need? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, can I hook you up with something? Like, if you're doing that, what's up? Like, you know, so when the volunteers came to me, and they were like, hey, we wanna do this, I was like, I can get you space. Like, you know, like, one of my aunts runs a community center up the block that has a kitchen. You know, so you get somebody with a food license who's, you know, certified and with the city and all that, like, you could do it, you know, like, whatever. Like,
Hey, if you go through the proper channels, it just makes it a lot smoother.
yeah, you know, 'cause I'm always like,
Yeah, I feel you on that, you know.
but if somebody else is doing it, I'm like, yo, what do you need? Like, let me help you out, let me come help you. Like, I know there's an organization that does it on Wednesdays,
Okay,
and on 34th Street towards the west side,
okay.
and I don't know what they have, but they do it. You know, they do it every Wednesday. They get a lot of people to come out. Champion Pizza. Oh, Champion Pizza. Shout out to Hockey. Hockey helps out with them. He donates pizza to their calls. He also donates pies and pizza to the shelter up the block. He's also going to help us with the walk when we do that. He helps out with the festival, the Lower East Side United Festival. We have like a lot of people. We have like 2,000 people who come through the gates throughout the day. And as they come through, this guy, like, the owner of Champion Pizza, what he does is, Champion Pizza's up the block, right? He closes the shop for the day, and he's just like, make the pies and just keep bringing them. That's how fast they go. Like, literally, he brought like maybe 150 pies. He's just like, keep making them and keep bringing them. So, cool thing is, his godson, Gio, used to be one of my teens in my youth program at Edges. So, community thing going around full circle. But yeah, so if you got organizations that are doing it, support them, help them out, get them anything they need. So, in this part, so, is there anything else you want to talk about as far as like the process of getting your nonprofit started? Because we're about to move into the different ways it can.
No, man, I think you covered
Pretty much, right?
covered it. Yeah, it's work. And you know, to reiterate what we were saying earlier, just learn it as best as you can and know the ins and outs of your business, and you can't go wrong with that.
So part one of this, we're on part two right now. So part one is all about getting your process started. What goes into it, everything in that nature. So now we're gonna talk about quick tips on how you can care for your community. So these are quick tips. We're gonna talk about what Steve does in his community, and we're gonna talk about what Why Not Care does. But for the most part, here's quick tips, because everybody always asks me, like, yo, what can I do? It doesn't have to be monetary. You don't have to dig in your pocket. That's the biggest misconception people have with donating or working with nonprofits. They think you have to give out some money. You don't have to give no money. There are things more valuable than money. So right now we have quick tips is volunteer at one of the organizations, volunteer with Why Not Care, volunteer with Healing Souls. Healing Souls, Steve does a lot all year round. You can hit him up, he posts on social media, follow him, what's your Instagram?
At Healing Souls.
At
See
Healing
that?
Souls, across the board, you know, so you can follow him, you can hit him up. Hey, how can I volunteer with your organization? What are you guys doing? How can I donate some sneakers, some clothing, or any of these questions?
No, it's you.
Okay, so how can I donate something, like everything in that nature, so you can get involved, you can volunteer, plenty of opportunities. Another one is support local businesses. Support your local businesses by buying locally. Champion Pizza, we all buy from him. He supports us, we support him. The local Spanish restaurant, Castillo, I go there every Saturday morning and cook. As soon as I walk in, he's like, same thing, same thing. You know, like local park and community cleanups. Right now, we're working on what it costs to clean up the park. Last year we did the basketball courts for LES Skills and Drills with Pupa. You can help your neighbors, 'cause your neighbors are always doing something. Someone in your building needs help with their fridge. Someone needs help putting IKEA furniture together. Like, it's little things like that that really go a long way. Raise money for a cause or org you believe in. Donate to a trustworthy org or initiative in your community. Make sure, do your research. When you go to Healing Souls, you're gonna see all the work he's doing. So you know automatically whatever you put in is gonna be put out immediately. When you go to Why Not Care, you're gonna see everything we do, everything we get goes right back out. Donate to a trustworthy initiative. It could be clothing, resources, food, time. Time is more valuable than money. So I appreciate anybody who donates time, like does some type of research, does anything of that nature. Or make care bags for the less fortunate. That's how I started, doing care bags and resource flyers. But those are quick tips. But let's talk about Steve. What do you guys got going on?
don't we have going on? Like I said, we're very active, so one of the main things that we keep constant is sneaker distributions. So when we get in sneakers, we sort them, we clean them, and we get them ready for distributions, whether it's shelters, whether it's mission trips, whether it's walking the streets of these cities that we visit. So that's the foundation that we've laid, and that stays constant. We do a lot of collaborations, back to school events, holiday events, wherever we can plug our element into, we'll plug it into. We also are deeply rooted in our local community. So we're from Uniondale, and it's on way out on Long Island. You know, everybody from the city of Brooklyn, Long Island's a different planet. But so you know, we're deeply rooted there. What we've done in Uniondale is we've brought a different approach to community service. There are different civic organizations, different nonprofits within the community that kind of have their status quo and they've got their niche and they're doing their thing. So what we did was we just came in, we saw what was missing, and we provided that. So with Healing Souls being a sneaker-related organization, we've been able to attract the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the niche that we're filling, because a lot of the other organizations, they kind of focus on, you know, the older generation, and kind of like I said, they have a status quo on what they're after. So we came in on the ground level and built up the younger generation and encouraged them to give back, you know, and showing them what we're doing, and we're on their level in a sense when it comes to being relevant. So, you know, community service for us is same thing, plugging into different events, plugging that element, doing our own events. So we just came off of our annual Come in Unity event, another play on words. We started it 6 years ago, and what we do is we bring resources into the community. So we have vendors giving out promotional material on healthcare, job opportunities, educational opportunities, town and county services, social services, the military, the police department comes out, the fire department comes out, the school district is involved, and we have a cookout, right? So we have all of this information and resources, and we have fun. So the attraction is, you know, everything is free, nobody's selling anything, you show up, you get food, you get to play, the kids get their face paint. Like, it's just a, you know, festival basically. So we brought that to the community because we saw that it was missing. And it's been going strong, and it's a different element that was the status quo in the community at the time. So brought back the barbecue block party type of mentality with some substance behind it, and the people love it. So being able to give back within that our own community is a plus. So if anybody has any like needing to volunteer or wanting to volunteer, or like I said, donate time or anything like that, you know, we're always available. We're always doing something somewhere. Like,
Okay, so you organize the community event.
yes.
Now, when I look at the flyer, it's broad, right? And it doesn't seem to say Healing Souls, you know.
Okay, so our community event, the branding we put behind it, because the event is called Come in Unity, right? So what we do, we partner with the legislature's office, so they help facilitate getting the park, the town involved, the county involved, so they facilitate the groundwork on getting the venue and everything situated for us. There's another organization called Glory House, which is another community-based organization. A young lady by the name of Tarina, she runs a couple of recovery facilities. So she's been in the community for over 20 years. So she helps provide, she's actually like our mentor. So being that we weren't 5 years strong. A lot of corporate donors won't mess with you until you reach that 5-year mark. So she's been kind of like, you know, our godmother in a sense, right? So she's been helping us out and showing us the ropes on that end. So it's a collaborative event. Healing Souls, community started before we were officially Healing Souls, actually a year before we were actually Healing Souls. But we put it under the Healing Souls umbrella, but we don't push it so much as a Healing Souls event, we push it as a community event. So all of the vendors, all of the sponsors, everybody that helps make it happen, we encompass the event under their names as well.
Okay, so now I think my question it will be like, how narrowly you have to stick with the plan that you submitted to the IRS or government or, you know, the initial paperwork?
Right.
And now you are building your...
Right, so we do, so community events, it's a part of our community give backs. So within our, initially, yes, it's broad-based enough where it encompasses that, because it's the give back, right? So giving back, the sneaker aspect is our foundation, is what we do, but within our bylaws, we actually have that come in unity listed in our bylaws. It's a part of actually one of our taglines as well. So we've incorporated because it was gonna be underneath our umbrella anyway.
And are you like bound to receive your salary only under certain percentage?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
No,
Yeah,
it's okay.
like you obviously any donation that you get, you can't, you know, pocket all yourself, right? Like you have to use it for community. Like
Right. So the donors.
Is it like percentage based? Like you have to.
Right. So when it comes to donations for events, donors can specify that it has to go strictly to this particular event. When we fundraise, we do fundraise specifically for this event, and whatever residuals are left over, we do carry it over till next year. But what happens is, when it comes to monetary donations, if it's open-ended, you can use it for whatever is organization related. It doesn't specifically have to be used for community, right? So you have that leeway. But if a donor gives you $1,000 and they say, we want this $1,000 spent on this event and we need proof of it, you have to spend that money and show them proof of it. So those are the restrictions. Most donors, I think pretty much all the donors that we get from this event, it's kind of open-ended. When it comes to some of the corporate sponsors like Beth Page, they want to see an impact statement. That's pretty much like Beth Page wants to see an impact statement for what they get. And they want to see where it goes.
And if you get a lot of donation, but you didn't do anything for like a certain period, like 3 months, 5 months, 7 months, 2 years, when did it become like problematic with the government or something? Like, do they complain?
No, we haven't had any issues. You can whatever you collect, if it sits,
It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay.
So the thing is, when you file your taxes, with any business in general, they're gonna look at it and be like, is it making money? Or are you just using it for like maybe the EIN number or something like that? And they can determine that by what's coming in and what's going out.
Right.
So let's say, for example, I get $5,000, right? And I use $4,500, so I have $500 left. They'll be like, all right, money came in, money went out, it's being used, it's being put into the community. But if I'm at 0 donations for like a certain amount of years, every year my business is taking a loss, the government could be like, we're shutting you down, we're taking your nonprofit status because you're not doing anything. You're operating at a 0 expense every year and at a loss every year, so you're not impacting the community, so you're not servicing the 501c3 status. Because 501c3 status is a privilege to have. Like, in order to have that, you do need to put in the paperwork and you do need to service the community. If you're not doing that, they think you're trying to do something like scandalous or trying to do a hustle or something in that nature. But any business in general, when you're filing and you're operating at a loss for like 3 to 4 years, the government could come in and be like, even if you're just a regular corporation, an LLC, an S Corp, they could come in and be like, you're operating at a loss for 3 to 4 years, what's going on? They'll either just shut it down and say you lost
Or
your
their auto
status.
insurance, see what's going on.
Yeah.
Because your business, if you had a regular for-profit business,
Mhm.
like so, for example, like my wife's daycare, right? For a certain amount of years, she has to operate at a loss because
Mhm.
she's building her business, she's building her clientele. So there is an allotment, in a sense, where you can be at a loss for a few years, but you're gonna have to start generating some income,
Yep.
some profit. At the end of the day, your business has to grow. You have to grow your business. So it's either you're gonna figure that out, or like I said, the government's gonna come in and audit you and see what's going on, or they're gonna shut you down because you're not doing what you said you're doing. When it comes to the nonprofit, same thing. You know, we're not here for profit, so whatever residuals are left over is left over. But as long as you're active and you're providing for the community, then it's, you know, when we file, like all of our expenses, whether travel or events or whatever the case may be, we buy a ton of shoes. I mean, even though we get donations in, but back to school, we'll go and spend $2 grand on sneakers. You know what I mean? So we're so active that sometimes we don't have any money left over.
And
Yeah.
that happens with me a lot, where being that Why Not Care is so small, like as far as body-wise, but we do big things. A lot of times, like for example, the cost just gave us $3,000. That's already gone.
Gone, right.
That's already gone. Like
Yeah.
as soon as it came in, I had to pay the vendor
Right.
who's gonna do the paint, who's gonna get the supply, who's gonna come and paint. Or what if I notice there's not a lot of money coming in, what I'll also do, I'll be a fiscal sponsor or fiscal conduit. Whereas I could take money from another organization. So for example, a senior center in the Bronx just hit me up. They're not a nonprofit, but they're a community center, right? They operate under New York City Housing Authority. So they hit me up like, hey, we got this company, they wanna give us $2,300 in order for us to buy supplies to build a garden in the Bronx for the seniors in the community. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. What's up? You know, like, what's up? Like, he's like, all right, can you be the fiscal conduit or the fiscal sponsor? Fiscal, not physical. So you can be the fiscal sponsor, so we can get the check. I'm like, all right, but what happens with that is I become fully responsible for those dollars. But I submit a letter to the company giving them the money or the grant stating, hey, I'm gonna be the fiscal conduit for this organization and I'll be responsible for it. So I have to have a certain level of trust with that organization and the director that he's gonna follow through and give me all his receipts, because I still need to document, because I'm responsible for that. Why Not Care is responsible for that. So he gives me all his receipts from when he went to Home Depot and everything. I give it to my accountant, I dump it into my folders for him, and it's all there. So now, being that, let's say I didn't get the $3,000 from the cost to do the tennis courts, and I just got that $2,300. Now when I file, it looks like, hey, I made $2,300 and I spent that, so it shows income coming in. You know what I'm saying? Because Why Not Care, I'm able to operate at no cost. The only cost I have is maybe my accountant, because I do a monthly thing with him in order for him to track my accountant, and he does my LLC and my personal stuff too. So it kind of comes out of my pocket anyway for the nonprofit, because he don't really charge me for nonprofit. He charges me for my personal stuff, and then I just lump it in there. So he's a good guy, he helps me out with that. But for the most part, yeah, there's different ways to operate a nonprofit in order to have some type of revenue coming in when you're not operating at a loss every year. So those are things that you'll learn as you go along, as you guys go along. But fiscal conduit, you gotta be on point.
And that's one of the options, backtracking to part one, is that's one of the options before even starting a nonprofit. You know, you can find a nonprofit that will be the fiscal sponsor and operate like that for a little while to see if you know, it's your thing. And then you go ahead and file and do your own thing. So that was one of the options that we had researched. But yeah, so, you know, with this, when we first started, everything was out of pocket. Like all the paperwork, filing, everything, our first 2 trips were out of pocket. And then I was like, we can't sustain this. It's just not gonna happen. So we held our first official fundraiser, and you know, we raised, and that kind of, it didn't like shoot us to the top. It gave us a couple of dollars where we can function. And as we function, with no matter what, even if we had $0 in the bank, giving away shoes is free. Like I could put $10 worth of gas in my car and go somewhere and distribute sneakers. That doesn't cost us anything.
Exactly.
So, like, you know, like Martin was saying, like operating on that level, we can do that. But there comes a time when you have money coming in, that money has to go out,
Yep.
you know, for the purposes that.
So, somebody see.
No,
No,
no, it's good.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here
I'm
for.
sorry. So you don't pay any tax?
No.
No. Then why do they care if you are paying out of pocket? If they want you to spend money, right? Like, if it's a business, then they can complain. If they are not, you are at the loss and then they are not getting revenue
Right.
through taxes. But you are not gonna pay tax anyway. So why don't they encourage you to just, spend your money?
Well, if we're spending our personal money, that's a personal issue.
Yeah.
For us.
I
But
know
on
it's
the,
not practical, but
but on the government side,
yeah.
we could be abusing our privilege, right? You can abuse your tax exempt privilege. So
By spending your.
we could dump money. Just say we dumped $1,000 of our personal funding into the nonprofit, and then we go and buy $1,000 worth of goods tax free. That becomes a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right? So people can abuse the privilege of being a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
Or, if you're raising money for a cause and you're not spending that money on the cause, that becomes a problem. So, so those types of issues, that's why they scrutinize you so much, because it is a privilege. And, the IRS is gonna get theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're giving you a privilege to not have to pay them, you better be doing what you're supposed to be doing, because they're watching you, and it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
You set this up to do the right thing, to function in the world. But there are abuses, and the little guy, I wouldn't say the little guy doesn't abuse as much as the big guy, but we have so much of our personal stuff invested